welcome back. We have got, I hope you had an enjoyable lunch and some fantastic conversations. I've heard on the sidelines a number of discussions about content from this morning, follow-on ideas, even some pushback and challenges, which is one of the things we're looking here for. We want to make sure that, you know, as we have this conference, it's not just a constant affirmation of everything, but what are the new ideas out there? What are some of the pushback ideas out there? So up next, we've got a fantastic panel looking at crisis management. What are you prepared to do? A live crisis leadership exercise. What's fascinating about this is that Mike and I are the only ones in the panel that know anything about it. So what we have done to these brave volunteers is we have basically given them a dossier, each individually, so they don't know who the other players are, about their role in this exercise, but they basically know nothing about it. So Mike is going to go ahead and roll through the injects, and then I will go ahead and do the moderation of the responses to those injects live on scene with our esteemed panel members. So, do we want to go ahead and get rolling?
Before we do, I just want to acknowledge Chris, because I was putting together this exercise. It would have taken 4 days to go through all these things were happening, you know, volcanoes and zombie apocalypses, and I brought in Chris, who's a crisis management expert. It's like, help me in this crisis. So we toned it down a little bit, and I appreciate him stepping in.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, we managed to scale it down from about 27 slides to 7. So yeah, it's good. All right, you ready to?
Ready to roll. For more than 150 years, the state of Illinois University at Evanston has stood among the Midwest's leading public institutions. Founded as a land-grant university dedicated to agriculture, science, and public service, SUI, as it's known, has grown into a world-class center for education, innovation, and research. Generations of students have rallied around SUI the Hog, the university's beloved mascot. From football games to homecoming celebrations to commencement ceremonies, SUI has long symbolized the traditions, pride, and agricultural roots of the institution. Over the past year, SUI, the university, not the hog, has experienced growing tensions. A prolonged Gaza encampment drew national attention. Jewish and Zionist students reported harassment and intimidation. Activists demanded institutional change. Trust across portions of the campus community has eroded. The class president, as graduation comes closer, has declined repeated requests to provide her speech in advance. Meanwhile, rumors of a stunt emerge to be held by Dr. Gould, who will be giving the keynote speech at the graduation. He's an influencer known for big stunts and big monetary prizes. His team denies any shenanigans, however. There are also hints on social media that the administrative union may protest or demonstrate by being replaced by AI, which is a specialty of the university. Let's introduce our panelists at this point, I believe.
Yeah. So, our esteemed panelists, we have the Chancellor of the University,
Nope.
the Dean of Students.
No, I'm Chancellor.
Chancellor of the University, the Dean of Students, and the Director of Public Safety. Would you like to say anything about yourselves briefly?
I am Dr. Nathaniel Voss, and I am the Chancellor for SUI, and I'm 58 years old, and I have been here for about 4 years in this role, and I'm looking forward to my next move up the chain.
I'm Dr. Vanessa Cole, but I like it when students and their parents call me Vanessa, first name basis, every single time. And there's times where I feel like I just want to make sure every student has the best experience and then tells all their friends and family about how supportive our institution is. So it's very nice. I started in residence as residence life, and I've moved up on to being a dean, so I'm just so happy to be here and support the students.
Great. I'm Chief McFry. I am the campus cop. I'm the top dog on the campus. But I ensure that all the students feel safe and secure in their environment. And I work with my colleagues to make sure we have the resources to protect them.
Excellent. Well, that's the last of the fun and games you're going to have here. It's now Sunday morning. Graduation begins in a few hours. A caller identifying himself as a member of the Judean People's Front for Self-Defense states that if Jewish students are intimidated at graduation, there will be blood. The caller claims explosives have been placed near the stadium. Additionally, reporters claim the class president intends to address the administration's refusal to divest from Israel during her commencement remarks.
All right.
The director of campus safety, McFry, who has cultivated excellent relations with his law enforcement counterparts, engaged with his national security contacts. The FBI believes the threat is probably not credible, but they cannot rule it out.
All right, so now we get into some of this response. As you can see there are a number of possibilities moving forward at this juncture. And what I'd like to do is for each of our, and we'll go from the Director of Campus Safety up to the Chancellor, because as if they are giving advice, give them in 2 minutes or less, what is your perspective on this? How should you move forward? So the recommendations are either proceed, delay, cancel, conduct a search, other, and also what are the communication imperatives from your level and your role? So one of the things that we took out of the slides that we probably should have left in, the graduation is being held in the University Football Stadium. The University Football Stadium already has built into it some security apparatus. You've got the guards, the attendee screening, things like that. There was an original search done. They didn't know that either until I just told them this right now. So
Sunny and the high of 90 during the day.
Sunny and the high of 90 during the day. So please, Director McFry, what's your advice at this point as to whether or not they should proceed with graduation?
Oh, thank you. So we've already probably gotten our threat management team together and working with our partners. Do we deem this a credible threat? We follow the simple loop of identify, assess, respond, mitigate, and then recover. So right now we're in the identification of this potential threat, and now we're assessing it. Assessing that, looking at the phone call, also reaching out to other parties to see, do we feel it's credible? Given the event and its location, we already have good screening processes in place, but the question will be, do we need to add any additional mitigations to the football stadium, to the screening, or anything else? Secondly is getting that executive summary up to my partners, my leadership at the university. Right now, I feel like it could proceed, but I would recommend additional mitigations.
Outstanding. Wow, that was nice and brief. You're well under your 2 minutes, so if we need to come back to you, we can. Madam Dean of Students.
I mean, I agree to an extent. I'd really like to proceed, but I also want to make sure that our students and their families aren't made to be vilified, right? I want to really make sure that freedom of expression is upheld. We already know that the president of the Student Society is a great guy. We always liaise with him. We've got a great rapport, nothing to worry about. None of these issues have come up in our care assessment meetings and crisis management. They're all good students. So I'd like to proceed, but always thinking through, right? Like, we're here to support. We've got families coming from all over the world for these graduation ceremonies. We don't, as I said, want them to feel vilified. So please do this kind of under the radar too. We don't want to make people feel like they're being interrogated when they're coming in.
That's fair.
Okay, and Mr. Chancellor, you have heard the advice of your advisors. You are the one that has to make that decision. What are your concerns, perspectives, and what's your way forward as of this moment?
Shut it all down. We're done. So I've got a couple competing priorities that I need to take into consideration. First and foremost is life safety. So I am concerned about the life safety of our students, the parents that are attending, any guests, et cetera. So that's going to come first. And I'm going to make sure that our unified command is operational and fully functional. My director of public safety, Chief McFry, is my lead when it comes to life safety or public safety issues. So I am going to take his advice and his lead with respect to the intelligence he receives and the risks that we're facing and whether or not it's credible or not. With that said, I also have to recognize that our university receives a lot of federal funding. We also have a lot of donors, a lot of other factors that are at play here, and there's potential political outcomes that could come from taking certain stances. So I want to, make sure that my esteemed colleague, Dr. Cole, and I are aligned. And one of the things that I do have a challenge with is the fact that our president of our Students Association isn't willing to share an advanced copy of the speech, considering now that we have information that tells us that there may be something untoward that's going to happen. I think that's something we need to get in front of to make sure that we have a full understanding as to what we can mitigate and what we can expect. And then lastly, I need to consider I report into a board of trustees. It's a public university. So, they're my boss. And then ultimately, there's a higher state level commission, so the governor of the state I have to answer to as well. So I need to make sure that I'm keeping my board well advised and informed. So, I'm going to be looking back to both of my colleagues to my right here to ensure that I have timely information that is verified. What I don't want to have is social media or your general media publishing or promoting anything before I can advise my board. So I need to make sure that I balance speed as well as accuracy when communicating back to my board. So at this point, I'm not going to intervene and say it's a go, no go, because both of my team are not saying no go. I'm looking for them to gather more information. I'm looking for us to take steps that we can. As the chief said, he's going to take some additional mitigation steps to ensure the safety of the venue. And then, of course, I'm going to be looking for Dr. Cole to intervene with respect to the student relationships for what we can control to try and get us a better understanding as to what we're about to face.
Excellent. And based on that feedback from the Chancellor and what you've heard from the other participants, do either of you have any additional thoughts before we are hours away from launching graduation and going forward?
Well, as I said before, we have a great relationship with the president of the student union and really trust his judgment. And so I think maybe our side could have a softer conversation with them and see. But I trust in him and I trust in what he stands for based on his trajectory here. And we also don't want to set a precedent where students feel like things have to be vetted before they say them in front of a group. So I'd really still like to uphold that part unless we have any other information. But again, really just thinking through the optic of having too much security and what that might do for people's feelings of safety, like in terms of the psychological safety. So I think we have to tread lightly still.
Excellent. Director McFry, anything further?
Yeah, I'd also want to make sure that our threat monitoring teams we do have open source scrubbing tools. We want to make sure we get the right information to our leaders. So we want to make sure that our JOC, our Joint Operations Center, is scrubbing that open source. Sometimes there might be indications just before an action. So also working with our state and local partners on their threat intelligence and their intelligence teams as well.
Excellent. Thank you all very much for your insightful view and comments.
Can I add one thing, though?
Please.
I'd really like to make sure that no one's privacy is impacted here, though, too. So I think when we're starting to delve into people's, conversations or their social media posts, we still have to make sure there's kind of that equitable piece there.
Well, thank you very much. No, it's an excellent pushback on that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of progress through the beginning of graduation.
The clock is running. Gates open in 90 minutes. Communication has been handled poorly, and now here we are. The messaging to the community is that everything is all okay and everything will run as normal. But student media now report the class president intends to address Gaza directly during their remarks. At 10:30 a.m., the class president does begin the remarks, criticizing the university leadership and expressing strong support for the Palestinian cause. Portions of the crowd applaud, others boo. Several groups begin chanting. Dr. Gould takes the stage without any more, there's no response after the chanting settles down. Dr. Gould takes the stage with his antics, and the atmosphere becomes lighter and more spirited. He sees Suey trot onto the field, as is tradition, and he makes a quick joke. Soon into his remarks, however, he announces that one lucky graduate will have their loans paid off and much more. There's an envelope with a $1 million check taped to the bottom of one of the 20,000 chairs on the field. Everyone starts throwing over chairs. In the mass of humanity, a cry rings out. One graduate has found the envelope, but there's a skirmish, and security reports that other students claim their seat assignment was wrong and the money is theirs. Family members start to become involved, and voices rise. Pushing begins. If you thought that was something, taking advantage of the chaos, several students on the other side of the field unfurl an Israeli flag and set it on fire. Crowds begin converging from multiple directions. Graduation's still underway, but Dr. Gould has paused, and his executive protection detail has moved him off the stage. The flag incident resolves, the fire burns out quickly, fortunately, and emergency staff remove the students. The fight over the prize continues, but it gets localized with the security response. The dean of students calls for calm, and most students comply, seeking to simply finish graduation and move their tassels. However, outside the stadium, the story is growing. Reporters start calling the media affairs office. Donors start blowing up the president and chancellor's phone. Social media starts going crazy. And Muslim and Jewish organizations announce that they're looking to make their way to campus to see what's going on. The situation continues to evolve. A prominent donor leaves a voicemail asking where the university has lost control of the campus. Several parents post videos of the scene at the stadium, and they go viral. Parents begin posting online asking whether SUI remains a safe place to send their children.
So at this point, we'll go ahead and get our next series of injects, and feel free to address the graduation in flow and this post-graduation time period as we're going forward. It sounds like the emergency response teams did an excellent job of handling the on-field situations, but what are you looking at from your perspective of how things are going and what the priorities continue to be? We'll start with
We'll start. So a lot has occurred, obviously, at this point. So establishing COM is the first thing. So emergency mass notification system that we have in place, we want to get messaging out. So we do have a crisis management team that's already been activated in the JOC, the Joint Operations Center. We're also calling in the Joint Crisis Comms team to talk about what comms should be sent out via text message, email, and also how we're going to deal with the press and the media. So that group is talking now to make sure that we get the right language and the right pre-approved language up to the leaders, so we're ready to respond to those. Also, to additional officers, we want to make sure this does not spill into additional parts of the campus, so we've called in our reserves to make sure they're in a good place, also our local and state partners. But I think the big thing now is messaging and establishing a state of calm.
Also to add, local and state partners, there are multiple graduations happening today, and they're tapped out. And your security, your police force is being stretched as well with all this activity going on.
So, excellent. Please.
Thanks so much, Director of Security. That was great, and I totally agree. I think in terms of some of the more nuanced communications, though, I've got wonderful relationships with the parents. They've met me at orientation. As I said, they call me by my first name. I'd actually really like to reach out to some of them individually just to go through this and again, really talk about the support resources we have on site and everything we do for their children when they're here. I think that would go a long way to keep that rapport that I've developed over this time. And just really making sure we have supports available. Like we can do surge counseling, have all kinds of people there to support if people have questions. We have our medical center up and running if anyone was injured when there was pushing going on. But really trying to personalize these things so again, maybe they can take down some of their social media posts and really just trying to quelch some of the ongoing online stuff with the parents.
I would just add that we do want to pay attention that the messaging we're sending to the parents is the same messaging to our students, and externally we want to speak with one voice across all platforms. So I agree, that's a great idea.
Yeah, okay, great. And as I said too, sometimes just like the rapport building over time, they might have very specific questions about their students themselves. So I think that bigger messaging is great, but we might need to just kind of do those quick reach outs too.
Very interesting. Mr. Chancellor, your take on the situation and your choices to move forward.
So for starters, I'll talk on the public safety side. So, I am going to look to my director of public safety. He's called in reserves. Obviously, we're kind of tapped out at this point with respect to mutual aid, but again, I do have a reporting relationship up into the governor's office. So I am going to confer with my director and make sure I do have concerns. Our sworn service is only 58 members strong. That's not a lot based on, I think, what we're looking at. So, there's an option here that I can place a call into the governor's office to see if maybe we can override some of the staffing challenges and get some support to add on to the contingent that we have from the university. With all due respect, Dr. Cole, I think we're going to bring in our general counsel and as well as our director of corporate communications. I don't want any communications going out to parents or anybody else without having it vetted by legal as well as by our corporate comms people. I want to make sure that we've got a consistent message going out. As well, I want to make sure that the messaging that we're putting outwards, which is obviously going to end up at this point probably in social media as well as mainstream media, I need to make sure that I've got a briefing to go to my board of trustees. So the first message that's going out is going to come from me. It'll be consolidated based on the information I get from both of you, but I need to make sure that I advise the board of trustees what is going on. Again, as quickly as we can, but I need my corporate comms and legal to help structure our message going out. And it can be family friendly, I'm fine with that, but I also have to take into consideration that there are political ramifications to what's happening right now. And while we have a great relationship with our student association and the president, and I love the relationships you've built, and those are fantastic. However, we have a university to run. We have to think about the longevity of this school with our funding, both with federal as well as with our private donors. My phone is ringing off the hook right now with respect to complaints from our donors and what is happening. So we need to get some control of that. So we're going to start with bringing together our crisis management team at the executive level, which is going to include our general counsel and corporate comms. We're going to make sure that our communication is structured and is consistent.
That sounds excellent. Any response or feedback to that from the other
Chancellor, I'd just really like to make sure that any comms that go out, it has updated support information in there for both internal and external resources, right? So everybody kind of knows what to expect. And we just don't want to be posting, security or police officers at every location we have on campus. We don't want people to have another issue with that. So just make sure I have a seat at the table about the comms part.
No, absolutely. I think, you're definitely at the seat at the table for that. I think with respect to placement of security, I think, we're going to allow our director, McFry, to make the best decisions that are needed to protect the life safety of our people. Obviously, we have students as well as parents here, but we also have faculty. I have employees to worry about. I've got just shy of 10,000 faculty and staff that work at this university. So I'm with you with respect to communications, and our communications need to be not only outbound, but also internal to our staff. Make sure that we're providing our EAP information internally to staff that are affected by this, as well as, again, all of the social support mechanisms that we have for our students.
And I would add to both of you, last year when we lost the national championship, we did do an AAR. So we do have members on our joint crisis comms team from legal and comms off that AAR.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Outstanding. All right. So that's where we're going forward. And there we are.
Okay. Before we get to, President Trump has called and offered the National Guard, as even insisting on sending the National Guard to clean things up, and saying that clearly there's no control on this. This is America's campuses have become a joke, that they're liberal orchards, and the crazy left is indoctrinating our kids, and the university system in Illinois is just being run by a bunch of crazy radicals insisting on bringing the National Guard in. So fortunately, he gets distracted by other things, and you talk him off the ledge, and they don't send him. But Monday morning arrives. No explosives were found, thank goodness. Graduation was completed. There were a few minor injuries. There was friction. It strained your officers. It strained relations on campus. Parents and prospective students are in a tizzy. The donor calls keep coming. Federal grants are, people are calling that into question. And the union that represents people that were dismissed through AI advancement is calling for an inquiry as well. So everything was, everybody's safe. It was completed. Degrees were conferred. Was graduation a success?
So that is our next question. From your perspective, was graduation a success? And moving forward, because you've still got this comms issue, what are your priorities as you continue to move forward through this scenario?
And more importantly, Suey is safe.
Yes.
More importantly, Suey was recovered and is safe. We've got about, again, 2 minutes each to give the final wrap up on this in perspective. And I will let whoever of you would like to go first.
I can start.
Please.
So from my perspective, was graduation completed? Yes. Was it a success? No, from my perspective, because I'm now going to be quite busy trying to salvage our relationships with the federal government, with our donors, trying to make sure the money is coming in. My tasking back to my team out of this is going to be that we do have a full debrief, a post-mortem. We do make sure that there's a solid after-action report. I want to make sure this doesn't happen again. So, we're going to continue having graduations. We're not going through this again. So we're going to have to look at lessons learned. But I need to now structure all of my comms back to my board of trustees, keeping them in the loop as to where things are going. But I now have to go back out, most likely to a lot of our high-end donors, and have conversations with them. There's probably going to be some repercussions. Some people may be thrown under the bus as a result of this. Dr. Cole and I may have a couple disagreements in the next couple weeks. But I am happy with respect to the role that my public safety director played. Again, the fact that there were no serious injuries, the fact that there were no explosives and everything else, a lot of the bigger concerns that we were worried about from a life safety perspective were covered. And that was my primary concern. So life safety was taken care of. I'm happy with that. I just have a lot of other repercussions now that I have to deal with.
Absolutely. All right. Whoever would like to go next.
I can go next. I think it was a success because parents still got to come and see their kids. They traveled from afar. No one was seriously injured. We might have been kind of overblowing some of these apparent threats. And again, I just really don't like to see a precedent set where we would ever cancel graduation based on some of these factors when people have invested so much to come here to see their students. In terms of the conduct lens, we really need to kind of look at some of the students involved here. And often we really try to look at this as a learning opportunity and think through the code of conduct and the way we can restore our faith in the students being able to move on. Since they've graduated, we don't know where the accountability lies, if there will be anything related to criminal charges. But we also do want to make sure that it is taken seriously from our side on the conduct lens. But again, I really do think it was very successful, and we had parents coming here. I saw lots of great examples of hope and just love throughout the day. We have also put support services into residence itself. We have 15,000 people living in residence. So we want to make sure those students living on campus feel like they're safe as well, without having all kinds of police officers everywhere at the same time.
Great. Also, too, in my opinion, the mission was accomplished. Our crisis response worked. Our joint crisis comms teams came together. I think you never let a good crisis go to waste. So we will be looking for additional headcount support, so we're not caught shorthanded next time. And we could use some more funding for some more advanced technology and tools. I think moving forward, we got to reestablish the trust they have in the campus police. So I think we have to move into community policing mode, doing some outreach to make sure that we're part of the community, we're there to help, and they're part of the solution. I think government relations helped us. We have a small GR team, might want to improve that as well, but it got involved very quickly when the National Guard incident came up. So that was the last thing we probably wanted on our campus. So invest in government relations, I think, is a big takeaway. And again, looking at this holistically from an AR and after action report, I think there's a lot of good lessons learned here. But to me, we got through the event. Again, every plan goes to heck when you get punched in the face. There were some things we could have done better, but I appreciate the leadership and the support. But we really need to get that trust back on campus.
I'd really like to see your plan, though, for upscaling policing too, and kind of what that looks like, since many of our students are, they're from areas, especially international students, where there's not the same trust in policing. So I think that could also have huge detrimental impacts on our student experience. So we'll have to talk about that.
We would love for you to be in our working group.
Great, thank you.
Chief, I hereby authorize you to arm Suey. So.
All right. Mike has one final inject.
In the aftermath, you still don't know the fallout with the students, but Dr. Gould's reputation took a bit of a hit. So now he's offering $10 million to the university for cleanup costs, trouble that he caused, but he's also asking for an honorary degree from the university, which he never fulfilled the degree requirements when he was there. So he's looking to rehabilitate his reputation as well, and wants to make peace.
All right. So we'll see how that plays out in the future. Please, let's give a big round of applause to these fantastic role players. Literally, they had, we gave them about a 2-page brief on who their character was, but no other information about this scenario. So really does show what pros these guys are and how thoughtful they are working through this entire scenario. Thank you very much to Michael Gips for doing the initial creation of this.
Thank you to Chris for cleaning it up.
Yeah. And any other final remarks? Thoughts and feedbacks in role or out of role, thoughts or feedback on this experience and the realities of it?
I think for me it's super useful because normally I'm in this guy's role, and but we're always thinking about the different perspectives, like the dean of students, and as we were talking about things like freedom of expression and the heavy-handedness sometimes that students or parents might feel with the police presence on campus, and so that's definitely a balance we always have to find, especially in an academic setting. Always really thinking through ways that we can kind of come to that middle ground. So I think for me, it's great to put myself in the other shoes of someone who's responsible for students and outside of the security side. And we have to do that every day, right? We have to do that where we're always kind of thinking about that, but it's very useful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I found, event security and event planning is a little bit different, nuanced with universities. I have a little bit experience in it, but ironically, when you asked me to join this panel, we're heading off to University of Kentucky in about a month for the Alabama-Kentucky football game, but to see how they planned for a large event at an SEC stage. I think we're going to take a lot of that back to how we do event planning at McDonald's. So there's a lot of great takeaways for corporate and education.
Yeah, and I'll just say, playing this role as the chancellor, which you can just equate to being a CEO of an organization.
He hated it.
I hated it. But it does bring some perspective. I had my own personal feelings and thoughts as to what was transpiring and what I'd like to see happen, but I have to keep my chancellor hat on, and I can't always play that role. And so it's the same thing. You may not get the messaging that you'd like or the responses you'd like from your senior executives when you're dealing with a situation or a crisis, but they may be actually aligned with where you want to go. They just can't say so because they've got to look at the bigger picture. And in this case, my hands were tied. I need to make sure my donors are happy. I need to make sure my board is happy, but I would have loved to shut things down when I could.
No, thank you very much. Really fantastic, I think, discussion here. Looking forward to the next several sessions as we go. And I will turn the mic back over to Mike for the next stage. So thank you very much.
Another round of applause for you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. It was fun.